And we got a super chat here, so we should probably get to the super chat first here. So Atomic Stag, $31 super chat. How do you personally balance investing as much as possible into Bitcoin with just living your life? Like deciding whether to buy your first place to live versus continuing to rent so you can keep stacking.
I have a problem with this because I over allocate all the time to Bitcoin. I'm always struggling to pay my bills. It's always coming down to the wire every month because I'm trying to stack as much Bitcoin right now as possible. But yeah, I mean, I've owned a house before. It was a liberating feeling, a feeling of freedom for the first year of it. And then it became a lot of responsibility of maintaining that home. But you know, there's a certain sense of freedom you have from owning your home. So these things might not be one to one, right? You're comparing something, two different assets that are much different. Bitcoin has utility; it's a different type of utility, but a house has a lot of utility as well. But personally, I'm very thankful I sold my house. I'm very thankful I put that into Bitcoin, and I'm okay paying rent because I know that that allows me to keep my Bitcoin. I would have had to sell some of my Bitcoin to have a down payment, and I don't have to do that right now. So I'm happy with renting and stacking.
Renting also is very flexible, and
Yeah,
especially in uncertain times like now, where you buy a house, you're pretty much locked in there for at least 5 years without losing just like the transfer fees, transfer
yeah.
tax on that house. Like that's a big consideration that not a lot of people consider. So yeah, I have no issues with renting. We own the house here. The one thing that I would say is that Bitcoin has really changed my whole spending habits, and I think that a lot of Bitcoiners would probably attest to that as well. I find it much easier to differentiate my needs versus my wants, and so things that I need, I have no issue spending my Bitcoin to
Mhm.
obtain. Things I want, I'm okay waiting. And once you understand the dynamic of the longer you hold on to your Bitcoin, the less of it you're going to have to sell. It completely changes the way you think about things and the way you consume things. So that's kind of my approach to it.
Yeah.
I do like the fact that when you buy a house, you have that consistent payment. So if you get a mortgage, you
Mhm.
have to, no matter what happens, in the US at least, you have that consistent payment. In Canada, it's a little different because you reset your mortgage every 5 years. In the US, there are so many factors that you have to consider in this, right? Let's say in the US, if you can get a mortgage at 2%, um, you're going to be making a lot. You're gonna make your payments are going to be a lot smaller than the rent that you would have to pay,
Yes,
right? So
that's
your
true.
rent
Yeah.
may
Very
be like
true.
$4,000 at a point, but your payment might be 2,000. And it seems like interest rates are coming down. So maybe when you renew in Canada, you'll have a low interest rate and you'll be able to pay a low amount. But the amount that you're paying is going to stay relatively consistent and it's expected. You don't know what your rental price is going to go up by. You don't know if somebody's going to kick you out when your term is done and you have to find another place. And then the new place is going to be 3,000, 5,000, $10,000 more a year, and maybe you can't afford it. Maybe you don't get that raise. So those are things that you have to consider. I also think that it's important to have a stack of Bitcoin. I think stacking Bitcoin is key. If I had started with not, so I bought a house before I knew about Bitcoin. So if I had known about Bitcoin and if I had started stacking Bitcoin instead of buying the house, I'd have a lot more Bitcoin, but I wouldn't have the stability that I have today. I probably wouldn't be able to start the business that I have. I wouldn't be able to do this all day, really, with the social media stuff. Um, it depends on what you want. If you want stability, I think buying a house is key. If you want the returns, now keep in mind that your portfolio could drop 70, 80%, and you may have taken this risk to buy the Bitcoin over the house. And if it drops 60, 70, 80%, if you sell your Bitcoin, you're kind of screwed. So you
Mhm.
lost out on both. So you have to understand how Bitcoin works. If you're going to buy Bitcoin instead of buying the house and you don't understand how Bitcoin works, you're going to make a fool of yourself. You're going to sell your Bitcoin low and then you're not going to be able to afford either. So make the right decision based on who you are as a person, make the right decision based on what you have as assets. I think if you're a millennial, it would probably be a better decision to buy Bitcoin at this point, especially if you're single. If you're single, it's even better to buy Bitcoin instead of buying the house because that way your Bitcoin is going to increase in value until you get into a relationship or you start a family. You're not going to have this opportunity to stack Bitcoin the way that you are now if you're single. as you would if you had a family. So those are things to consider, I'd say.
I have a couple more points here too. Bitcoin, you can buy any amount of it. When you buy a house, you're going to get priced out of the market. There's only going to be certain things you can afford. The down payment's going to be quite a lot. You
Yeah.
can buy any amount of Bitcoin, $500, $100, whatever, right? So you can get into Bitcoin a lot easier than you can get into owning a home. The other thing, though, an advantage to being a homeowner is right now the financial system really recognizes that as an asset and as collateral, and it allows you access to cheap debt. And you could refinance your home after a while of paying into it to maybe take an opportunity to buy some Bitcoin from doing that at an opportune time. That might work in the future for you fairly well. So that is an option that you have with a home, and loans and lending and borrowing off of your Bitcoin and all that. It's just not there yet, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's a comment from Daniel here talking about the People's Reserve. I think that that's very interesting, how that whole thing's going to play out in terms of refinancing your house, using the proceeds from the refinance to buy Bitcoin, and then you have the house and you have Bitcoin, and if you happen to miss a payment, they just sell some Bitcoin instantly. That I think that that's where we're heading to. I just don't see any way around that because it just makes so much sense. The last kind of point that I would add to this super chat here is that we have to keep in mind that Bitcoin is just a means to an end. It's you don't want to own Bitcoin. You're holding Bitcoin just to store your time and energy without it melting away. So if you have things in your life, like there's certain things that I'm okay with, that I've decided that I'm okay with spending my Bitcoin on. One is my health. So that could be, a gym or more weights for the gym, better food I'm okay with spending, experiences like taking a trip with my family or going to Vegas in May. These are the things that I'm okay spending my Bitcoin on. I'm not going to go buy a new PlayStation 5 and spend some of my Bitcoin. That's not, and that might be for somebody, but that's not for me. So I think you kind of have to look at what's most important to you, what you need, and then just kind of spend as needed. The end goal here is not to, not to be the next Michael Saylor. It's to just store your time and energy and then use it when you see fit. And you'll probably get a much better deal in the future as well on that. So that's kind of how I would summarize mine.
I think if you do want to buy things, though, I think it's fine. I think it's perfectly fine. Everybody has desires, right? Everybody wants to buy things.
Exactly.
I think there's a limit. So it goes back to, we were talking about how everybody can buy Bitcoin, but not everybody will be able to afford Bitcoin, right? So everybody can buy a whole coin today, but not everybody will be able to afford it. Same thing with Bitcoin. You can buy anything you want with your Bitcoin, but you can't buy everything. So you have to make sure that you look at the sunk cost. You have to look at the opportunity cost. If you buy this, what are you going to miss out on? The way that I see it is, if I were to spend my Bitcoin on something, it's going to be, I'm basically losing 10x whatever I'm spending, because I think Bitcoin is going to go to $1 million in the short term. In the medium term, maybe $10 million. In the short term, maybe $1 million. Long term, 10 million to 100 million. It'll keep rising. Right? So those are the things that you need to look at the trade-offs on. But the thing is that if you say that nothing is worth it, then what's your life about, right? You're supposed to use your Bitcoin to buy utility. You don't know how long you'll be on the earth. You don't know how long you'll survive. You could die next month for all you know. You could find out that you have cancer, and now you can't live the life that you want to 20, 30 years from now. So you have to think about that. You have to make sure that you're not giving up on everything that you enjoy. Try to figure out what the balance is. That's the key. If you want to start a family, you might need to get a house. So you can't keep renting. You can't keep moving from place to place. You can't downgrade to the cheapest house if you have a family. So you have to think about those things. You have to think about security. You have to think about your own stability. You have to think about your own needs and wants. You have to think about, I think one of the keys here is the that pyramid, what's it called? Maslow's hierarchy.
Yep.
So look at that and make sure that you're fulfilling your needs, and then start thinking about your wants a little bit more. I think at a point it's important that you enjoy your money. You've been stacking. The point of life isn't to just keep delaying gratification. I think Bitcoiners just get way too good at that. They keep delaying gratification and then they never enjoy themselves.
Yeah, you're right. I think there's a balance to be had there, and I know I've tried to figure that out myself too. And I'm starting a family, so I moved from my rent doubled because we needed to move somewhere that was better for having a family, and that means less stacking, but it's a something worth it to me. So yeah.
No, that's great. I think that was great advice, fellas. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody out there.